What's our next subject for the night?
Well, we're going to talk about the presidential hopeful and the current mayor of New York.
You wouldn't be talking about Bloomberg, would you?
Michael Bloomberg.
And why do we have him on the radar tonight, Mark?
Well, I think he's kind of thrown himself in the fray over gun control, or actually gun banning.
Gun banning?
Yeah, because he's not for gun control. He doesn't think people should have guns at all.
Well, I thought he was under the impression that he could rewrite the Constitution, and I understand that he wants to ban all guns in New York. And he is actually spending his own money from his billions to ensure that the rest of us can't live under the Constitution, but the Bloomberg Constitution.
Well,
is that where this is going?
He's putting $12 million in TV ads into anti-gun ads that are aimed at swing states that are kind of could go either way on gun control.
Are you talking more about the southern states?
Yeah, well, there's just several swing states like Georgia. I can't remember what they are, but there's like 6 or 7. So he's targeting there, and he's kind of using this ad campaign of that these guys are country folks,
bunch of good old boys.
That they are all for background checks, and they go
checks.
for all this. Right.
Yeah, but let's talk about background checks for a minute. Background checks is an immediate lead-in to gun registry, which means that the federal government would have a complete list of everyone that owned a handgun, or a rifle, or an assault weapon, or a shotgun, or even a BB gun. It could get to that level. So what the problem with this is, the background checks are not what's really people are arguing about. They're talking about that, but they're seeing this as a national gun registry in the guise of background checks. Because if they know that if Mark's buying a Glock tomorrow, they've got it on paper. Oh, Mark's buying a Glock.
Wait a minute. Wait, if you have to register your car, why shouldn't you have to register a gun?
That's an interesting question, Mark. But I have a question. Do you think that the government's going to come in and take your Honda? Is the car they're going to come in and take my car? I mean, that's not what the issue is. Guns are what the big fear is today. And
wait a minute. Guns kill people and cars kill people.
Yes, but who's driving the car and who's handling the gun is the question that no one seems to be able to answer. If a person that's mentally unstable is handling a firearm and he decides to go forward and shoot somebody, yeah, I'm telling you, the Connecticut shootings, the Colorado shootings, all of these things going back to Columbine are horrendous. And my heart goes out to the parents, the families of all of those people. But this country was set up with rules, and those rules are called the Constitution. And you know we speak about this Constitution on every one of our shows. But what I think people are forgetting, that this is not Venezuela. This is not Hugo Chavez wanting to rewrite the Constitution because he doesn't like it.
Hugo's dead.
That's unfortunate.
Yep.
And thank God, because who knows where that's going. But why is Bloomberg so angst about gun control?
Well, I think you're wrong on your answer.
Oh,
yeah, okay,
he's not.
The difference between registering a gun and registering a car, okay, under the Constitution, the idea is that if the citizens have arms, right, and the government becomes tyrannical, they can rise up against the government.
Correct.
So if you have a tyrannical government, the first thing they always do is go collect all the guns.
Well, that goes back to Italy under fascism and Germany under Nazism.
Right.
And that also goes along to like countries like North Korea, where people can't have guns unless they're in the military. Japan, nobody's supposed to own a gun.
So the idea of the registration, why that affects people who are constitutionalists or strict constitutionalists, is because they believe if your gun is registered, it's kind of useless, right? Because if they can go collect all the guns before they do a coup d'etat, you know, if they do a takeover,
right,
then it's kind of useless. So that's why people from a constitutional angle don't want to do the registration. They don't want to do the background checks because they think that's going to give them a list. So they can go collect all the guns if there's a time for takeover.
Yeah, okay, well, I know this is a little premature to talk about it in those terms, but the problem is if the government knows who owns the guns, the government's next step, if they want to impose tyranny, and that's what the Second Amendment was set to stop. It stopped a tyrannical government from imposing effectively like British-like rule as they were in the colonies prior to the Revolution.
Right.
That's what the idea was, to stop that from happening. And the founders of our country actually believed that this could happen again. Now, they didn't name any president. They didn't name any Democratic, Republican Party, but they named a tyrannical government. And here we have a situation where the first steps of knowing who has guns is called a background check, but in reality, it's a gun registry.
Anyway, Samuel Adams, who was quite a ways back, and he said the Constitution shall never be construed to prevent the people of the United States who are peaceable citizens from keeping their own arms. So that's the thing. People want to keep their own arms, and they're afraid if they're registered, they won't be able to keep it. Well, so I would think that's the difference between registering a car and registering a weapon.
Okay, I got a question. Does Michael Bloomberg travel with bodyguards?
Well, I'm sure that the bodyguards only would shoot people who didn't vote for Michael Bloomberg.
Oh, that could be.
Yeah.
But Michael Bloomberg, it's really nice to say that we want no guns on the street, but he's protected by usually probably 10 bodyguards at a time, some with Uzis, some with who knows what, and they're all carrying weapons. He's protected. But what about the rest of us? What if somebody breaks into our home? So why does he believe it's best for the country that nobody has a gun?
But I mean, the conversation is all back to the mass murderers, like these big shootouts. Usually these shootouts occur in gun-free zones because
a school.
Yeah, because the person knows when they come there, they won't have any competition. And the statistics show that, if there's people around with concealed weapons, right, who are breaking up a mass shooting, usually 2 people get killed. If the cops are breaking up a mass shooting, usually 14 people get killed.
That's because it takes them a long time to respond. They don't know who the shooter is, and they don't know how to control the situation. Somebody that's standing there with a concealed weapon, it has the opportunity to maybe stop the problem before it gets any further.
So anyway,
is that what you're referring to, Mark?
So I'm saying, what they've done is they took, the tragic deaths and they use it as a political points, right? And they said, okay, because of these tragic deaths, we shouldn't have any guns and we should take away the Second Amendment. But there's some people who, are parents of kids that were lost, and they said, look, I think we should have
guns in school.
We should have concealed weapons because it's more effective, right?
It is.
So, I mean, yeah, both sides can take a tragedy and try to use it to an extent. Now, the anti-gun people have done this to an incredible amount. They've spent
all I've heard is guns every day.
They've done all their political capital, like capitalizing on these deaths, basically dancing on the graves of these people and exalting it in order to get their political thing. But there are people who lost their children saying, yeah, we should have concealed weapons. So,
well, like I said, I know both our hearts go out to the families that have lost children in Connecticut. And I'm going to tell you that I have children, and I'd be heartbroken and broken down if somebody came into her school and my youngest. I'd be shocked, and I'd feel violent tendencies. But I don't think the first thing I would do is say tear down the Constitution because of what happened. I'd be looking more at why aren't the people they're the psychos that are running around with the guns, why did they even have that gun in their hand?
Well, I mean, nobody wants people to get mass murdered.
Correct.
That's pure and simple. So I think both sides are using it. It's a very flashpoint. You've got the guy from the NRA. What's his name?
Pierre.
You got Pierre, and then you've got people from the other side saying all guns should be banned. What it really comes down to is what's the most effective way of protecting everybody. Some people think it's, have people out there with concealed weapons. Other people think it's like take every weapon away.
Well, that there are states now that are mandating that there has to be an armed person on the school campuses with a gun. And there's other states that are saying that everyone should be in possession or ownership of a gun. And there's even other states that are saying that everyone should be able to have concealed permits.
Right. Well, there's about half the states say that you can bring a concealed weapon onto campus. The other half say you can't. And there's like 3 or 4 or 5 states where it's kind of up to to local rules. But that's the big issue, really. And as far as where the Constitution plays into, the Constitution would definitely fall down on that people should be able to have concealed weapons.
I understand. As you remember, in the last couple of years, the Supreme Court has fallen in favor of the Constitution. And miraculously, we're hoping that they continue, that those miracle decisions continue on, because there is no way that we should be overreacting to every event that happens in the news and then say we have to change our whole country because of it.
Well, I think there's changes. I think there should be changes as a result of the mass shootings, and those changes should be more concealed carries.
Okay. Well, listen, I think, Mark, where this legislation goes.